Today, we're exploring the heart-wrenching story of the Ortega family, whose joyful Christmas Eve turned into a nightmare. This is not just a story of tragedy, but a reflection on the fragility of life and the unexpected darkness that can strike even during our most cherished moments. On December 24th, 2008, the Ortega family gathered at their warm and welcoming home in Covina, California, to celebrate Christmas Eve. The house buzzed with holiday cheer, echoing with the laughter and voices of family members sharing a joyful evening together. The festive spirit was in full swing as Joseph Papa Joe Ortega and his wife Alice, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, enjoyed a lively game of Texas Hold'em in the cozy dining room. The table was a mix of playing cards, snacks and smiles, capturing the essence of a happy family moment. Outside, in the backyard, the younger kids were having their own fun. They played video games and splashed around near the pool, their giggles and excitement adding to the festive atmosphere. The night was one of those rare moments when everything seemed perfect. Upstairs, 17-year-old Michael was lost in his own world, typing away at his computer, perhaps chatting with friends or exploring the internet. The house was filled with warmth, love, and the magic of the holiday season. The family had just finished a delicious dinner and were enjoying the simplicity of being together, each moment treasured and every smile cherished. It was a peaceful, picture-perfect evening, the kind of night that makes lasting memories. But this tranquility and happiness were tragically short-lived. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, the joyful celebrations were about to take a devastating turn. A knock at the front door shattered the serenity, setting off a chain of events that would forever change the lives of everyone inside. The knock that came was not just an interruption, it was the harbinger of unimaginable horror and heartbreak that no one could have anticipated. An 8-year-old girl, her face lighting up with joy, shouted, "Santa Claus, Santa Claus!" She rushed to the door, believing it was the jolly figure everyone loved. The anticipation was palpable as the door opened, revealing a man in a Santa suit. But the joy turned to horror in an instant. The man, Bruce Jeffrey Pardo, who was the ex-husband of Sylvia Ortega, one of Joseph and Alice's daughters, had come not to spread cheer, but to unleash terror. Pardo pulled out a gun from his red Santa suit, and without hesitation, shot the little girl in the face. The room erupted in screams and panic as family members, who had been basking in the warmth of the holiday spirit moments before, were suddenly thrown into a nightmare. As Pardo fired more shots, chaos engulfed the house. The family, trying desperately to protect one another, scattered in all directions. Some tried to shield the wounded, while others attempted to find safety amidst the chaos. The front of the house, once a scene of festive gatherings and hugs, became a place of unimaginable horror and desperation. Pardo's brutality did not end with the gunfire. He had brought with him a homemade flamethrower device, a tool of even greater destruction. In the midst of the chaos, he ignited it, and flames began to pour into the house. The once festive home was quickly engulfed in a raging inferno. The fire spread rapidly, fueled by the intensity of the device, and soon reached heights of 50 feet, towering over the house and lighting up the night sky. Trapped inside, many of the family members found themselves unable to escape the inferno. The thick smoke and intense heat made every corner of the house a perilous trap. Their beloved home, filled with memories and the sounds of laughter just moments before, was now a scene of devastation and despair. The fire's ferocity was so immense that it took a team of 80 firefighters over an hour and a half to finally bring it under control. By then, the damage was irreparable. As the flames roared, those outside could only watch in horror. Neighbors who had been drawn to the scene by the commotion stood helplessly. Their festive evening turned into a night of shock and sorrow. Inside the house, the heroic efforts of the family members to save each other were overshadowed by the sheer scale of the disaster. The flames and smoke obscured everything, leaving behind a trail of heartache and loss. The terrifying events of that night were a stark contrast to the holiday joy that had filled the Ortega home. What began as a celebration of family and togetherness ended in unimaginable tragedy, forever altering the lives of those who survived and the community that surrounded them. Once the flames were finally extinguished, what remained was a scene of utter destruction. The home's structure, filled with holiday decorations and the warmth of family moments just hours before, was now unrecognizable. The heat had been so intense that parts of the house had melted and charred beyond recognition. For the firefighters and first responders, the immediate concern was the horrifying task of locating and identifying the victims. Inside the ruins, the firefighters discovered a grim scene. The bodies of Joseph Papa Joe Ortega, his beloved wife Alice, and several of their children and grandchildren were scattered throughout the wreckage. In total, 9 members of the Ortega family had perished in the tragic events of that night. The flames had been so ferocious that the remains of the victims were severely damaged, making visual identification impossible. Faced with this daunting challenge, authorities had to rely on more technical means to identify the victims. Dental records became a crucial tool. Each victim's dental X-rays were meticulously compared to the records they had on file. This process, though painstaking, provided a way to piece together the identities of those who had lost their lives. Alongside dental records, medical clues such as scars, unique physical features, and any available medical history were used to confirm who the victims were. This somber task weighed heavily on the authorities and the community alike. The realization that so many lives had been lost in such a senseless and brutal manner cast a long shadow over the town of Covina. The once cheerful and close-knit Ortega family had been shattered, and the community was left grappling with an overwhelming sense of loss and grief. For the surviving members of the Ortega family and the local community, the fire's aftermath was a period of profound sorrow and reflection. Neighbors and friends who had known the family for years were left in shock, struggling to comprehend the scale of the tragedy that had unfolded in their midst. Memorials and vigils sprang up as the community came together to mourn and remember the lives that had been lost. As investigators sifted through the debris, they found themselves piecing together not only the physical remnants of the fire, but also the shattered lives of those affected. The heart-wrenching discovery of each family member brought waves of sorrow as the full impact of the tragedy became painfully clear. The fire had not only destroyed a home, it had decimated a family and left an indelible mark on the community. In the weeks and months that followed, the authorities continued their meticulous work, ensuring that each victim was respectfully identified and honored. The resilience and determination of the investigators to bring some measure of closure to the grieving family members and friends were a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss. Through it all, the memory of the Ortega family and the joyous celebration they had planned for that night remained etched in the hearts of everyone who knew them. The fire's aftermath was a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring impact of love and community in times of profound sorrow. Bruce Jeffrey Pardo appeared to many as just an ordinary man, but beneath his seemingly calm exterior lurked deep-seated rage and bitterness. Pardo's recent divorce from Sylvia Ortega, a member of the close-knit Ortega family, had left him devastated and consumed by anger. The dissolution of their marriage was not just a personal failure to him. It was a catalyst that ignited a dark and twisted plan for revenge. Pardo's behavior during his marriage to Sylvia had been controlling and obsessive. As their relationship deteriorated, his actions became more erratic and threatening. After their divorce was finalized, Pardo's emotions spiraled out of control. Unable to cope with the loss and perceived humiliation, he began to meticulously plan a horrific attack on the family he once knew. Over the months leading up to that fateful Christmas Eve, Pardo prepared with chilling precision. He didn't just act on impulse. Every step was calculated. He started by purchasing a Santa suit, a symbol of joy and innocence that he would grotesquely twist to serve his dark purposes. This disguise was intended to deceive the unsuspecting family and allow him to get close to them before unleashing his wrath. Pardo also armed himself heavily. He bought multiple firearms, including semi-automatic handguns and stockpiled ammunition. But his preparation didn't stop there. Pardo constructed a homemade flamethrower, a device he would later use to set the Ortega home ablaze, ensuring maximum destruction. He meticulously planned his escape too, renting 2 cars, one for the attack and another to aid his getaway. Despite his careful planning, Pardo's plot had fatal flaws. As he set the house on fire with the flamethrower, he didn't anticipate the backdraft and the ensuing flames that would engulf him as well. Suffering from severe burns, his plan quickly unraveled. In excruciating pain and unable to continue with his escape, he abandoned his carefully laid plans. Covered in burns and his Santa suit in tatters, Pardo drove to his brother's house in Silmar, where he ultimately took his own life with a gunshot, bringing his reign of terror to a self-inflicted end. The aftermath of the massacre revealed the extent of Bruce Pardo's preparations and the depth of his twisted intentions. As investigators delved into his background and searched his home, they uncovered a shocking array of weapons and explosive materials. Pardo's house was like an arsenal, filled with additional firearms and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. This cache suggested that he had planned for an even greater level of violence than what had tragically transpired. One of the most alarming discoveries was the rental car parked near the Ortega home. This vehicle was rigged with a homemade explosive device, set to detonate if tampered with. It was a final sinister touch that highlighted Pardo's intent to cause further devastation even after he had left the scene. Authorities had to handle the car with extreme caution, defusing the bomb to prevent further loss of life. Friends and acquaintances of Pardo were stunned by the revelations. Outwardly, he had seemed like a friendly, if somewhat reserved, individual. He had once been a valued employee and was known for his intelligence and technical skills. However, beneath this veneer of normalcy, Pardo harbored deep resentments and violent fantasies that he kept hidden from those around him. His attack on the Ortega family was the horrifying culmination of these internal demons and his inability to accept his personal failures. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Pardo had been driven by a combination of personal grievances and an unrelenting desire for revenge. His actions were a shocking manifestation of his internal turmoil and his determination to punish those he blamed for his perceived misfortunes. The tragic events of that night were not just a family's nightmare. They were a stark reminder of how deeply hidden resentments can erupt into unimaginable violence. In the quiet town of Covina, the memory of Bruce Pardo's attack and the loss of 9 members of the Ortega family would leave an indelible scar. The community grappled with the senselessness of the violence and the devastating impact it had on their collective sense of safety and trust. The Covina massacre serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly joy can turn to sorrow. It is a story of unimaginable loss, but also of incredible resilience. The strength of the Ortega family in the face of such tragedy is a testament to the power of love and the human spirit's ability to overcome even the darkest moments. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a deeply moving and tragic event. If you have thoughts on this case or want to hear more stories like this, please share your comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one.